Okay, there are two different types of op amps on here. I thought they were the same. One is a 4560, that's the one at the top, and the one below it is a, what is that, a 4558. So sorry, that's a 4558, that's a 4560. I've got the pinouts. I've just drawn a sketch of what the pinouts are on these. The 4560 is like that. So let's have a look at the 4560's output on the scope. So that's that pin there. And the 45, no, wrong chip. 4560. Okay. 4560's output shows it's. We just got the right pin. Let's get the right pin, shall we? There's pin 1 on this thing. Here it is. There's actually next to nothing on the scope at the moment. Very weak signal. Let's look on the other side. Okay, got sine wave there. So that's on pin 7. And pin 1 should have a signal as well. Which it has. It's 10 volts per division. I'm doing everything one hand, holding the camera and trying to do this is not the easiest job in the world. There we go. So there's our sine wave on the scope. You can see that. This is the other channel. Okay, so we assume then that's the input op amp. Okay, this is the second op amp. So we're going to look here on so pin 1 should be the output. Interesting. That's okay. And output the second op amp. That's okay. So what's going on here? Am I getting confused? Right, I'm going to attempt to do this one-handed. It's not that easy because I've got to try and show you with the scope, and also I've got to try and show you what I'm checking on the board. This is the first op amp I'm interested in. That's the input. This is where the signal first comes into this op amp. This is the 4560. I'm interested in pin 1 here and pin 7 of the output of the op amp. So we go to pin 1. Reliable connection. Okay, pin 1. Good clean waveform. So that output to that side of that op amp's working correctly. That's the other side there. I'm not too sure anything out. So that's good output from the first op amp. Then we feed into the second op amp, and that op amp's the other way round, so I'm just going to flip the drawing around the other way. So we're interested in this chip now, which is here. So I'm looking at the output of this chip, which is this pin here. Nothing. You see, that's the input. I've just got the input of the chip just then, I think. Well, that's interesting. There you go. You see it collapsing. I shorted the chip out briefly. I shorted. I think I don't know what I did, but I see the waveform collapsing. That's exactly what it's doing on the output. The waveform sort of distorting. So that op amp's definitely had it, and that's the 4558. So I'm going to try and find out the specs on that and see if I've got anything equivalent I can just pop in there and see if it works. I've just been going through some of my op amps, and I've found this OP271 dual op amp. After trying the last chip that gave poor distortion, high distortion, almost as bad as the original one, plug that in and let's have a look on the output. There you go. a nice clean sinusoidal waveform. So that op amp looks like that will probably work okay. I need to check the ratings and things. So what I'll do is I'll just connect the preamplifier back up to the main. Let's feed some audio into it and see if it sounds okay. Okay, I've reconnected the audio lead to the power amplifier. Op amp's in. Amplifier's working. So that was the problem. The op amp, that second op amp had failed. Was pulling the power supply down and just basically killing it, really. So unusual fault, but I suppose these op amps will fail. Now this isn't the right op amp. I need to look up and find out exactly which is the correct one. Try and track down the correct one and look, maybe just compare the specs. This might be fine for in this position here. I'll put it in an IC socket so I can actually change it when it's back in the unit. So let's get the thing back together again and give the pots a clean and things, and then maybe do a distortion test on it, maybe just to make sure that the distortion's within spec, and go from there. Well, the amplifier works, but strangely enough the bass control doesn't make any difference at all. It's almost like the amplifier is producing very low frequencies. So it could be that that op amp's just mismatched. It's probably putting an incorrect load on the tone controls. I need to look at the circuit. So I'll have to buy the correct op amp. I was going to do that anyway, but it's working and sounds fine, apart from a few noisy switches. I don't want to talk over this because I don't want to copyright, so just you can hear it's working fine. It sounds a little bit shrill actually, so we'll order the proper op amp and put it all back together, give it a clean up. I need to get some fusible resistors if I can find some 270 ohm fusible resistors as well. So let's get the stuff on order and get this thing wrapped up. Right, whilst I'm waiting for the op amp to come, I have been running it without this second operational amplifier in here, and basically all this one looks like it does is make the tone corrections. If you look at the circuit here, there's pass coming in on this pink line here, it's fed into the op amp, the first op amp here, the one that's working, and the output's fed to these three gangs of resistors, which is the bass, mid and treble control, and then the output is fed also, if you follow the track along, it feeds here and is fed straight out to the output. So it will actually work without this IC. So I was thinking, well, what's its performance like without this other operational amplifier in here? Because the way I see it, if you've got two operational amplifiers working in parallel, which is basically what's happened, and this one's going through capacitors and resistors, you're going to get a sort of like a phasing effect, and just in theory I would have thought add to intermodulation distortion. So I've been listening to it and I'm thinking, well, it sounds good, but it sounds very bass-light. It almost sounds like it's lacking bass. So I've just connected up to the audio analyzer, and we're just going to do a sweep on it just to see if in fact it is lower level. It is the bass response is rolling off at low frequencies, and also I'll be interested to do a before and after with the distortion level. So that's two things we're going to do now. So we're set up, and what we'll set up for reference, we'll set up with an AC level first. So let's go to AC level. I'll take it off the logarithmic scale. So we'll do our test at 3 volts, okay, 3 volts RMS, and that's where we'll do our distortion level, and we'll also do our sweep. So let's have a look at the distortion, and according to the take it off, come on, now it's saying at that level it's 0.2%. I'm not sure what the spec is, I'll have to check that, but 0.2% at 1 kilohertz with 3 volts RMS going in. Okay, so now I'm going to do a sweep. So we set our reference point again, so we need AC level, ratio, logarithmic, 0 dB reference point set. Then we press the sweep button on the 8903. We'll start at 20 Hertz. Okay, got -4 dB roll off at 25 Hertz. Yeah, there's quite a strong roll off. That's where the bass is lagging. So we've got to it's a surprising amount of roll-off. Flattens out about 1 kilohertz, so from 1 kilohertz all the way down to the low end frequency, it's rolling off. We've got a slight gain. Okay, so we've got a bit of a mid-range hump basically. That's basically what it is. We've got a low end roll-off and a bit of a mid-range hump, and a slight top end boost, so it's the whole sort of curve is sort of sitting like that rather than a flat response. We've got a slightly offset curve, so that's interesting. I'm just going to make a note of that. Obviously I've got it on video, and I want to do a comparison once we've got this operational amplifier back in, just to see how well it performs. I suppose what I could do is quick distortion check. I won't set it up on the scope. All I'll do is I'll go back to frequency 1 kilohertz, then I'm going to go to distortion, sorry, a power check I'm going to do, increase the level until you see rapid increase in distortion. Can't get enough drive out of it actually. It's amplitude 300 millivolts. Try again. Need to push the amplifier just back from clipping. There she goes. Whoa. Get it down to about 0.5%. Both channels driven. 19.08 special. 44 watts. So that's out of interest. That's LEDs are flat out here. A bit of a joke, these things. These are rated in music power or peak music power or something. It's only for show really. Yeah. I suppose I could calibrate them, but you'd never see them come on to 50, 60 watts because the amplifier isn't actually capable of producing that sort of level. So yeah, let's wait for these op amps to turn up, and we'll do another check. Right, the ICs have turned up this evening, this morning. They look like the right ones. I'm not sure they're genuine JRC. The trouble is there's so much Chinese crap on the market now, you can't tell if anything's right or not. Most of it's all copied and fake. But let's try them, see if they work. You can't really see the writing on them, I don't think, but they are. They're marked JRC. As long as they're not total rubbish, I'm not that bothered. So let's plug one in and see if we get operating tone controls. So. Making sure I put it in the right way, of course. Oh, let's turn the amplifier off, shall we?
Yep, it's a good idea before we plug it in. Stupid. Right.
It's plugged in. I suppose the easiest thing to do is connect an audio source up like my mobile phone. See if we got any improvement. I also want to run a frequency response on it afterwards, just to see if we've got a fairly flat response. That should give me a good idea if the op amp's actually doing its job, because the roll-off we were getting was like plus or minus 5 dB from sort of like 1 kilohertz down. So we need to get it better than that. Let's find something that's not going to get copyrighted. Okay, let's try it now. Yeah. Funny enough, the bass control makes very little difference. On either channel. Fading away again. Okay, let's turn it off. We've seriously got another problem with this unit. Now, it seems a bit odd that it's already starting to fade away again. So, there isn't an awful lot that can be wrong, apart from possibly the coupling capacitors are going leaky and it's sticking DC into the op amp. So, what I thought would be an easy fix is obviously not an easy fix. It's still an underlying problem with this amplifier. So what I'm going to have to do is get the scope on the capacitors and see what's occurring. Right, here's the clue. the amplifier becomes distorted, and it's almost sounds like it's going to thermal runaway. And it's the problem with this preamplifier. If I connect this preamplifier in, this is the preamplifier I've just replaced, op amplifier I've just replaced. If I plug this in, after about 30 seconds it becomes very distorted, and the voltage starts climbing on pin 6, which is basically pushing the amp into saturation, and you'll lose all the audio. Now the other clue also is that we've got no out bass control, and the bass control, I don't know if you can see here, is this pot here. I've got to keep the screen on because the screen keeps trying to go off. So I think there's a problem with this bass control. It's a ganged bass control, and I need to look at that. What will happen is, if you look at the input to the op amp, it comes back down here, and it goes to this resistor, and then it goes to the bass control. Okay, so basically, if that control's not working, that point isn't held at 0 volts. Because the other side of the op amp, the other side of this op amp comes down here and is then capacitively coupled to the treble and the bass, which do work. So I need to look for, I don't know what I need to look for really. I need to look at see if this pot's been damaged. Bear in mind it's a dual gang pot and it's doing it on both channels. But it could be it's only actually really doing it on one channel, but it's just overloading the amplifier anyway. So I need to have a look at the control of the bass control and see what it is, because that's the only thing it can be. That 0 volt point should be held at 0 volts all the time, because in theory it's tied between these 22Ks here and 22K here. It's basically a potential divider, and you've got the adjustment through these capacitors here to give you the bass boost. So let's got to have a look at that. Right, this is the problem here. I've taken the bass slider apart. The bass slider is the only thing that's DC coupling the amplifier and holding that input at ground level. You see these tracks here? Well, they're quite badly bent. I don't know if it's had an impact on the front and it's bent the pins. And it's basically not making a contact with the carbon track anymore. You can't get these sliders. They're, no one makes them anymore. This is an Alps 100K linear pot. I'm going to try and bend those tracks up, reassemble it, and maybe get to connection. The only other option is to bypass this bass control altogether, but it'd be nice to have the bass control working. So I'm going to give that a tweak and see if we can get the pot to work.